All right, season 4, episode 11 of College Basketball Review Courtside. Today, we turn to Cole Amundson. Goes to Wisconsin, huge Badgers guy, writes for Busting Brackets. A lot of insight as we move toward Selection Sunday. Officially March now, here at least on the East Coast, 12:23, where I'm speaking to you from. And of course, when you're listening to this, it will be March 1st. Cole, how excited are you for the best time of the year?
Couldn't be happier. I mean, my Twitter handle says it perfectly. Play for March. This is the best time of year. Cannot state it even better.
I love it. Play for March. That's what all these teams have been driving toward. Only a couple games left in the regular season. Conference tournament starting up in a couple of days. But we're here to talk mostly about Wisconsin and the Big Ten, a Wisconsin team that has just been all over the place this season. Uh, I don't even know where to start. So why don't you fill me in? Uh, we're almost through the regular season. A couple of Big Ten games left. Obviously, 3 left for the Badgers. But at this point in the year, I mean, how are you feeling for Wisconsin?
Not great. I mean, I think given the recent 2-6 stretch in February, it just hasn't been great. And you want to look at the season through from November all the way to March, right? It's the whole body of work. And technically speaking, Wisconsin has a really solid resume. They got 6 quad 1 wins right now, and their resume is still hanging on to about a 5 or 6 seed as of right now, which is crazy to think after they go 2-6 as the 2-6 stretch right now. But really, the problem is right now with Wisconsin, it's just the defense has not been great. That's really what it's been, and it's hurt them against Indiana. It hurt them against Michigan, against Rutgers. I mean, you can name it. And, these are road games that they've lost. Their only home game in the Big Ten that they have lost has came to Purdue. But the problem is, the Big Ten overall is weaker, and Wisconsin has been struggling against these weaker opponents, and it just has not been a good month for them at all.
But still, I think that's where people are maybe there's definitely concern with Wisconsin, but I don't think panic should set in. I mean, in my last bracketology, I had Wisconsin as a 4 seed. I was probably a little bit high with that, but a lot of the metrics still favor the Badgers. I don't think a 4 seed is out of play. But with that being said, at this point in the year, what is Wisconsin's ceiling? Do you think the Badgers can get up to that 4 seed? Is the 3 seed still a possibility? Is that a little bit of a stretch? Like, what are you seeing seed wise from this Badgers team?
I think in one aspect they still have. I mean, in the regular season they still got to play Illinois on Saturday. Then they got to go to Mackey Arena to close out the regular season. Those are two. Those are two really tough games. Don't get me wrong, but those are 2 quad 1 opportunities, right? Because their predictive metrics are just so high, and compared to their record, that is, yeah, you could definitely say a 4 seed is in within reach. Do I think that that will happen? I don't. This team reminds me a lot of the kind of like the Iowa State team last year, in the Big 12, where Iowa State, I believe, finished 19-13 in the regular season, but still got the 6 seed, and just they kind of fell through. The definition for Iowa State last year was like they went through the rigors of the Big 12, and this is kind of what Wisconsin is. Although the Big 12 last year is nowhere near what the Big 10 is this year. But I'd probably say if I had to say seed line right now, they'd probably sit on that 5 seed line, draw a daunting matchup against one of the 12s. You don't want to see McNeese State, Indiana State, you name it, won't be a great matchup regardless. But again, we all know the NCAA tournament, it's all about seeding. Of course it is, but it's also all about matchups and who you draw as well.
I think that's a perfect segue because, sure, seeding can definitely help out, and you want a higher seed than a lower seed. I mean, that's just the name of the game. But sticking with this original question, um, let's say Wisconsin does kind of stay on this line as a 4, 5, 6 seed and gets a pretty good draw. What is their ceiling once they reach the NCAA tournament? Because I know that, at least for me, at points in the year, this would look like a Final Four team. At other points, it looks like a team that could get beat in the first round. But as you see it right now, is this still a team that can make the Final Four? Do they have enough room to put another run in them?
The way I see it, I really don't. I don't see the Final Four as their ceiling this year. I would a month ago I was saying this team was they were flirting on the 2 seed line. They were on the 2 seed line, and they're heading into that stretch at Nebraska, then versus Purdue, and we were thought that this could be an opportunity for them to grab that 1 seed. But now they've obviously struggled, and I just don't see, given the way they've been playing basketball this past month, I don't necessarily see them flipping a switch. Now, could I be wrong? Of course I can. It's March, right? Anything can happen. But, I've ran through, you can go on barttorvik.com and you can look at similar resumes and see how those teams with the similar resumes have fared in the past. And most of the teams have flared out in the first weekend. Maybe a Sweet 16 here and there, but I don't necessarily see a Final Four in the picture for Wisconsin right now.
With that being said, I mean, obviously, it still is a talented Wisconsin group. I don't think anyone will deny. I mean, they came
No
into this
doubt.
year with I mean, one of the best returning cores in the country. AJ Storr has had some great moments. The transfer from St. John's. You mentioned defense. Is that the way that the Badgers maybe can turn this season around as best as they can? Or is there another way? Is there another player that you're looking to that Wisconsin fans can maybe, put a finger on and be like, this is how we can at least end the season on a high note?
Yeah, I think definitely the defense, a lot of the things they can turn around, a lot of the stuff that Greg Gard has talked about in terms of their defensive struggles have been sort of, in a way, they're sort of mental things, right? Maybe they're helping too much, or maybe they're not in the gaps as much, or maybe, a lot of the things with their defense this year is their perimeter defense, defending the 3-point line, is not very strong at all. We saw Rutgers hang, what was it, 76 or 78 on them, although it was in New Jersey. Again, that's not great. At home, Maryland scored 70 on them. Again, that's not great given how Maryland's offense we've seen has struggled in times besides Jameer Young. But, I think what Wisconsin can do, I think, is defensively, their KenPom, I just checked today, their adjusted defensive efficiency, I believe, is in the 50s, which in the grand scheme of things, that's not that bad. That's actually decent. That's not bad. But the problem is, people always we're explaining that this is Wisconsin standards, right? They're known to hang their hat on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Just last year, their defense was adjusted. KenPom adjusted defensive efficiency was in the top 20, and now they're in the near the top 50. So has it taken a dip? Of course it has, but it will definitely be the defense. Their offense has done the heavy lifting. Their offense can work. It works tremendously with AJ Storr. Completely opens the floor. Such a dynamic, athletic player. I just have enjoyed watching him play this year for Wisconsin. It's going to be the defense, and I think that they can turn it around defensively.
Okay, so defense, obviously the calling card there. Offense, yeah, we all know this Wisconsin team has players that can put the ball in the bucket. Defense, though, can certainly be a key. That's how it is with a lot of teams.
For sure.
I want to take it to a different route. Let's look at some of Wisconsin teams of old, because obviously,
great.
to me, I mean, this is a program that is one of the top programs in college basketball. It seems like Wisconsin maybe hasn't been there over the past handful of years. After Frank Kaminsky left, just hasn't been the same. There's been a year here and there. Do you think Wisconsin, especially in this changing landscape of the transfer portal and everything, will we see a consistent Badgers team again at the top of the Big Ten?
It's going to be tough. It definitely will be, because it's hard to find consistency in an era where everything is so inconsistent, right? And I think you could speak that for a lot of teams right now as they're trying to adjust within the NIL, within the portal era. I think it might take a couple years, whatnot. Whatever the future holds. I mean, I can't predict anything, but I do think though that Wisconsin, I do think it's unfair too, like, for people to say Wisconsin needs to go back to the Bo Ryan days or whatever. That's almost impossible to do. Bo Ryan is somewhat on a league of his own. So I think that Greg Gard kind of gets a run end of the stick there, where he's constantly being compared. Like, for Bo Ryan, you never want to be the guy that succeeds the guy, right? And that's kind of the situation Gard's in. But obviously now he's in his 9th year here at Wisconsin. He's had his time to numerous recruiting cycles, numerous years now, besides the Bo Ryan years that he had. I think the first 2 years, Gard went to the Sweet 16, but those were with Bo Ryan's guys.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you take over from a legend. It's never easy, and you always get up ending compared to them. They say that, oh, we're not going to hold you to that standard, but it just always happens no matter what. But sometimes it's the next guy that can take you over the hump. Sometimes, from a program standpoint, you just need that middleman
For sure.
Unfortunately, it seems
Yeah.
like that's Gard, and he's done a good job. Sticking it back to the Big Ten, though, I mean, it's going to be a changing Big Ten. There's going to be new teams coming in next year. Uh, I know I'm kind of going off topic here because I said I keep it to March, but I think it's an interesting discussion. I mean, like there's going to be teams from the West Coast. I know Wisconsin. Luckily, it's not Rutgers or Maryland. You're at least Central Time Zone over there.
Hmm.
But how weird is it going to be with these new teams joining the league?
No, it's going to be incredibly weird. But nothing that I'm gonna embrace it. Obviously, like you get to see USC come into town, you get to see UCLA come to town. I think it's great. I do. Now I think it's gonna take some time to get used to for sure. Like I mean, seeing UCLA come to the Kohl Center is going to be very strange, and it's just getting used to that. It's gonna feel wonky at first, but obviously over time, everything it gets to feel like a new normal. But that's the only way that's gonna heal is with time.
Yeah, no, it'll be crazy. We'll take it back to our original conversation though. Back on March, I want to talk about the Big Ten more specifically. Wisconsin to me should be a lock. I mean, barring
Yep.
3 straight losses
Yeah,
here, Badgers are still looking pretty good. Cross
for
cross
sure.
your fingers there. Um, Purdue clearly a lock. What Big Ten teams do you think are on that bubble, and where do you see them falling online? If you could for a little bit, I'm thinking of Michigan State, Nebraska. Even Northwestern, to me, Northwestern's pretty close to a lock, if not
Yeah,
already. Um, and then, you've got some other teams as well.
for sure. I mean, with Michigan State, that's the first one. They just dropped the two quote unquote easiest games that they had in the rate and to close the season, right?
Yep.
They had Iowa and Ohio State at home, could not beat them. Now Michigan State's standing at 17-11 on the year, but they are thanking the Lord that their record is seven. That the record, although is 17-11, their predictive metrics are just so high, and the reason for that, I don't know. I don't know why their predictive metrics are just so high. But it's keeping them in the field. But they have to go to Mackey still. They have Northwestern still. It's not going to be an easy walk in the park. I mean, I believe they have Indiana as well. I'm not 100% positive, but I do know that the schedule is not easy, and Michigan State can ill afford to drop. Probably they got to get at least two of those. You would hope one would probably be fine, but again, it's a tough situation with them. Northwestern, I think the Maryland one really was a tremendous win with them. No Ryan Langborn, but here they are. They go into Maryland and they win. It was really solid game by them. Nebraska dropped one at Ohio State tonight, but I still think they're relatively safe. They're kind of floating on that 8-9 game as of right now. I know their road record is not great. Their non-conference strength, their schedule is not great, but I do think probably about one more win left, and they should be in the field.
One more team I want to look at a little bit because it's been an interesting one for me. I never know what to do with this team in bracketology, and that's Minnesota.
Yeah,
You got Elijah Hawkins. You've got Dawson Garcia. You've also got a Minnesota team that doesn't have a lot of great wins, but they have 17 wins. They close out the season with home games against Penn State and Indiana. You would think that Minnesota could win both those games, and then they travel to at Northwestern. That could give them a quality win that they need. If Minnesota, goes 20-11, 11-9 in the Big Ten, what more do they need to do in the Big Ten tournament? I don't think they need to win the Big Ten tournament. Do you think it would still need to be a run to the championship or the semifinals, or could a 3-0 finish here realistically put them in the conversation for an at-large?
it'd be an interesting case. I mean, they go 3-0, they take care of business there, and then they go into the conference tournament. It all obviously depends on their matchups there. I do think, quite frankly, with Minnesota, it's just their non-conference strength of schedule is really what dug them in a hole. It basically, I mean, their non-conference strength of schedule is the worst in college basketball, unfortunately, because I like this Minnesota team. I love Dawson Garcia. I love Hawkins, Mitchell. They're great. This is a good team. Unfortunately, I don't see the NCAA tournament within reach with them. I see NIT bid is most likely with this group, but that is by no means a knock on Minnesota. I think Ben Johnson has really solid building blocks to move on to year 4 here after this year. And the thing is, I mean, you're going to have Hawkins, you're going to have Mitchell. If they can return next year, and I think you have guards that can return. especially in the Big Ten, that can help them tremendously. So, although I don't think the NCAA tournament is within reach now, if they go to the conference tournament finals, then yeah, maybe we start talking, right? Is that realistic? I'm not sure. You never know. But even if they do go for the NIT, I still would say it's been a very successful season in Minneapolis for sure.
Yeah, definitely conversations to have. There's going to be a couple of those teams. I have a feeling it's a weird bubble this year. Teams are moving up or down with just any type of win or loss. There's not a lot of bubble teams that have been just standing still in place.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, a lot of movement. Wisconsin's one of those teams, though, of course, Cole, that they do seem to be in pretty good place. Again, I'd like to
Yep.
see them from a non-biased perspective. Just get one more of these wins. Make sure that you don't totally tumble out. I think they'll get a couple more. But
I agree.
I kind of wanted to end on this. You kind of hit on it a little bit earlier. Greg Gard, and this might be a
Ooh,
very
great question.
tough take, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, is he on the hot seat?
This is a great question. This is one I talk with a lot of people about, and there are so many differing opinions on this. From my unbiased perspective, now I'm trying to get my bias out of the way here. I don't think he's necessarily on the hot seat right now. I really don't. I think he will. Obviously, the way this February has played out has not given anyone, especially AD McIntosh, any sort of confidence. But I don't think he necessarily is. And I know that we've seen, for example, the football coach, Paul Christ, got fired and because he kind of saw some, it was sort of a situation similar to the guards where they were good, but just not great. And I think that's kind of the situation now, but I don't think he's on the hot seat yet. I think there's too much talent and too much returning talent next year, too, that I do think that he will get another year. I don't think his seat is relatively warm. Is it lukewarm? It could be. It very well could be, but I don't think it's burning hot nor hot whatsoever right now.
Yeah, definitely not the season that the Badgers have hoped for lately, but Greg Gard still has done a lot of good things in his tenure in Wisconsin. Cole, again, thanks for hopping on
Thank
courtside with
you.
me today. Wisconsin, we'll have to see. It's going to be an interesting team to follow. I always like seeing what the Badgers do. Like, I'm not a Big Ten guy. I grew up a Big East guy, but Wisconsin's always been one of those random teams I've just loved seeing. So, obviously, it would be cool if this senior-led group can put a run together, but only time will tell.
For sure. For sure.
All right, and for everyone listening, again, thanks for tuning in on this episode, and just let us know who you want to hear next time, as always, and we'll talk to you next.